Hi, I'm Josh. I am with 1859 Historic Hotels. I heard somebody talking about this hotel. It's the Mingler Hotel in San Antonio at Alamo Plaza. It is our flagship property. It was opened in 1859, our namesake. I'm going to go pretty fast. We're based in Galveston, Texas, independent hotel group. We've been around a long time. Portfolio has fluctuated in size a lot over the years. We've got 11 properties, a dozen or so, not necessarily part of this group, but independent is going to be the key here. I'm going to say the word challenge, problem, and independent several times, and that's all good. It's not as negative as it sounds. So we will talk about the evolution of revenue management. There's a lot to it, and it's changing all the time. Whenever you talk to people outside of the industry, and if there are any revenue managers in here, you know what I'm talking about. People don't understand what it is that I do. And so I have to explain it to them. This is the old traditional definition that we see a lot, right? And then you see stuff like this. This is more of a yield management thing. And then you've got basic stuff that most people know. And then you've got really complicated definitions that just kind of go over people's heads. This is what a lot of people do whenever you tell them what I do for a living, and then they still don't get it. So we put it like this. We do a lot of things. There are many hats. We're engineers. We're economists, we're psychologists, we are artists, we are acrobats, and we are most certainly mathematicians. There's probably a lot of other things we could throw out there. The lines are becoming more and more blurred when we define revenue management. So if we look at the history of what we do, in the old days, this was the revenue management strategy. And that was about it. You either had a room or you didn't. We literally did rooms on the books. Then the phone came out. That changed everything for a while. And then, much later, American Airlines creates Sabre, the GDS proliferates, everything kind of changes then, and then this guy changed everything, right? Now, regular people are tapped into computers, actually using them at home. And this was the norm, all the CDs that you got in the mail. I still have a big stack. And now we're connected everywhere, right? Everything is connected all the time. We know all this. All around the world, and increasingly so in different environments, and that's changing more and more every day. And now we're dealing with our revenue management distribution strategies in ways that we weren't just a couple of years ago. Again, you guys know all this stuff. We'll see where it all goes. We try not to get ahead of ourselves. We don't try to bite onto all the new technology just for the sake of it being new. So we'll see, but some of these things you can't ignore. Yield management, as I mentioned before, is the old definition of revenue management in a way, depending on how you look at it. There's a complicated definition. This is an easier one. It's just the art of turning away business. It's directing traffic. It's a bouncer at a bar, deciding when and where to take certain pieces of business. So there are a lot of different pieces that, don't worry, I'm not going through each of these. These are regurgitated from previous slides. But to hit on a few that kind of help us understand where we've come, forecasting is kind of the backbone of what we do. You can't just throw a dart in the dark, but we're also not psychics. So we take what we know, combine it with what we can expect, and add in what we think might happen, a hunch, and all of that with the common denominator of analytics. There's pricing, probably another big backbone, and we use this definition as what the market's doing, what's on the books, where the sweet spot is, what it looks like. This is important. Let's not be a cheesy used car salesman. There's a difference between a $12.99 steak buffet and how you can present yourself with a nice steak dinner. So distribution management is probably what we'll hit on more than anything. There are lots and lots of places to sell our product, and it's becoming increasingly confusing and complicated. Meta-search is kind of turning all of that on its head again. And so we look at all the different places we can book. We look at all the technology partners that help us do that connection. Again, this is coming from an independent hotelier's perspective. We rely a lot on our technology partners, a whole lot. I'll hit more on that. Here's the thing about OTAs. And again, from an independent perspective, is that it's exhausting to play their game, but we have to. And I don't want to give off too much of a negative vibe to the OTAs. I feel like as an industry, we're kind of done with that. Let's stop harping on how horrible it is. But this is a particular challenge, the rate parity issue in particular. It's like Calvin ball. Anybody familiar with Calvin and Hobbes? Basically, they make the rules up as they go. That may not be necessarily true, but the line's becoming more and more blurred. It's unclear what the rules are. So rate parity is a game of whack-a-mole, and it's really tough to keep up with. You've got things like SPEAM. If you don't know that term yet, maybe you will. I hope you will. I hope somebody besides me says something about it. I'm going to give you a really quick rundown, and I will promise not to rant. SPEAM, apparently, as I've been told by market managers at OTAs, stands for Strategic Hotel Price Management. Some of the market managers didn't even know what it meant. It's just, oh yeah, those guys up at corporate do this thing called SPEAM. Basically, they will reprice our room nights on our behalf without our consent at odd times based on different data points that their, quote, mad scientists have found. That's a big challenge, obviously, because it throws us out of parity. It makes us look sloppy. It's done without our direct involvement. Sorry, you don't have to keep watching Whack-A-Mole. But we are very strategic in our cost of acquisition model. This is outdated now. This changes by the month, really. But the landscape is so diverse that we have to really struggle to keep up with it. The strategic or competitive pricing thing throws us for a loop. So I'm going to get off of that. If you want to talk to me more about it later, I'm happy to. I've got lots of thoughts. So there are costs and benefits to working with all of these different channels. Again, this is an independent hotelier perspective. The problem is that it's expensive, up to 20% at some of our properties, and that's nothing new, but it still doesn't taste good. But then you've got, some pros to it, and again, not having the leverage of brands. We get new guests. We have a market reach that we don't have on our own, all those types of good things. You saw this quote from Dara, former CEO of Expedia, basically to all of us hoteliers, if we get a booking from them and we don't turn them into a direct booking loyal customer ourselves, shame on us. And that's true, actually. I'm not going to argue with that. So we try to do everything we can. The brands have been doing everything that they can. This is old. I left the old stuff in here on purpose because we're still doing this after, what, 3 or 4 years now? I guess this campaign was the biggest one that Hilton had ever done at the time. Marriott did the same thing. A lot of agents freaked out about it. But here we are still talking about the same stuff. Here's part of one of the problems or challenges, especially as independent hoteliers. Expedia Affiliate Network is one of the many affiliate examples. Here's an example. This is our flagship hotel in Galveston. So the highlighted search results are affiliates or wholesalers. So that's fine, but from a guest perspective, which is what we try to always put ourselves in, it kind of looks like us sometimes. Now, a lot of people can read between the lines, and they know when it's a third party, but a lot of them don't. And so you've got groups like this, reservations.com. Not a dig at them. They've got a business model, but we're trying to do our best to educate our guests that, hey, you actually didn't book directly with us. You'd be surprised how often people think they did, even with the obvious ones like Expedia. But some of the more ambiguous ones, like reservations.com, kind of look direct a little bit. As you move through the booking process, you see a couple of different things, such as this. Very fine print, and this is the only place you're ever going to see it. And when the guest shows up, sometimes they'll say, hey, what's up with the $15 non-refundable booking fee you charged us? And we say, that's not us. And we're learning now, oh, they must have booked on one of the sites. And we've learned now that reservations.com is a common culprit of this. They're an affiliate of Expedia. So what happens there is that booking goes from reservations.com to Expedia. It comes to us just as any other Expedia booking. We know nothing about the $15 fee. Guests get mad at us, blah, 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 the rest is history. Problem is that it looks like us on the booking path. Here's another example of, and again, not throwing stones at what these guys are doing necessarily, it's just part of the problem and challenge that we have. Things that are just kind of, really? The slash-through rate on our property here, slash-through meaning the original rate over there, you see that 224 was slashed out, all the way down to 143. Look at those savings. It's because they searched the prices 15 days prior and 15 days after, came up with a number that looks good to slash through and display it that way on our behalf. So, okay. So it's a challenge. Again, it's what they do. And we're doing our best to educate our guests, right? They've got so many devices, so many different places that they can book. It's our responsibility whenever we get them, say, hey, don't forget, book direct with us. And that's a whole other different story, and we're doing the best we can. The problem is that it's too easy for guests to play the OTA game. It's exhausting for us. It's too easy for them because their technology is so awesome. I'm not going to lie. I book on those channels sometimes. Sorry. But it's easy. It's really easy. Their packages are built incredibly well. Their on-site technology, the guest communication pieces, the list goes on, their rewards program, whatever it is, it's hard to keep up. I'm not going to go on this rant for the sake of time. I'll just say real quick, user interfaces are so important. I don't know if there are any developers in here, but please, guys, prioritize your user interfaces. It makes everybody's life much more easier and makes us that much more inclined to use your tool. Expedia being a case in point, guests use it because it's easy. We have a lot of tools that we use internally, and especially as revenue managers, where clearly it was designed by an engineer, not a designer. So hire designers. Okay, done with that. But in the spirit of it being easy to do business with us, the most profitable business, direct, rides on the optimal guest experience from start to finish. So that's from the initial booking path, from them finding us, the searchability, and then our in-house communication, all of these typical things that you guys see. This is what we're trying to capitalize, do the best that we can as independent hoteliers to take care of our guests. So moving lightning speed here, breaking down the silos. Single best problem in communication is the illusion that has taken place. Revenue management is involved in every other part of the hotel, whether those other parts see it. It's directly linked and can impact every different department, manager, whatever it is. Here's a few examples. If we don't communicate well to Becky and her sales team, and the sales teams are the first ones to get pissed off at us revenue managers, so just keep that in mind. Becky and her sales team don't like that. They get it's ugly. Same thing with the front office and operations departments. If they're not aware of everything that we're doing, again, it's going to make them and possibly the guests mad as well. Same thing goes with the food and beverage departments. Unleash the beast. The list goes on. The problem is, revenue managers have historically kind of been that nerd down in the basement that isn't really good at communicating and doesn't like to get out much, and here's your spreadsheets, and communication was kind of an afterthought. We're getting better at that, I think, and I hope. There's a great series that Ideas is putting out right now in collaboration with Cornell and Sherry Kimes, one of the professors there. The analytical skills, yeah, check, we got that. What companies and ownership groups are apparently talking about a lot as a necessity is communication skills, leadership skills, and negotiation skills in their revenue managers, which is something that has been missing. It's that much more important for us to communicate well with all the other departments and ultimately the guests. So how do we measure revenue management? And this is the tail end here. We used to look at things in the traditional format of guest satisfaction, market share, and profitability as part of a balanced scorecard. That's still true, and that's all fine. Occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, and the underlying factors, okay, we know all of that. Those are still true, and they're not going away. There's a problem with those stats, though, is that it's only part of the picture. There's a whole bottom line that we have always neglected as revenue managers, at least in the hotel sector, and we don't focus enough on profitability. So with all these other KPIs, we miss the mark a lot, and so wanted are proper KPIs, and here's what we're trying to do. What we measure now, traditional occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR. Those are great. What we need to start measuring is that plus net ADR, net RevPAR, profitability per available room, booking cost of sales, OTA conversion rate. There are probably several others. We don't want to get too complicated with it, but those are really important. An example of net ADR, in the past prior to 2013, Expedia bookings all came in at a net rate. Then they introduced the Expedia Traveler Preference Program, and we started seeing inflated ADRs because we were paying after the fact. That kind of turned everything on its head. So what we saw as a result of that, especially as independent hoteliers, and the challenge we have of being dependent on Expedia and the likes, which is fine, our volume was so high that suddenly we saw an increase in ADR. That's a problem. Nobody ever factored that in. We need to be looking at that from a profitability standpoint. So another example is the booking cost of sales. We do it in food. Why don't we do it with actual bookings, the bookings themselves? And what's the metric? What's the standard for that? I don't really know if there is one out there, so we're toying around with the idea of, I don't know, is it 5 to 15%? That's when we line out our cost of acquisition model and make sure that it makes sense, and we back those out of our top line revenue production. So as independent hoteliers, I hear a lot at conferences like this, well, our team of data scientists, blah, 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 and I'm just, this is, I get it, and data scientists are probably really important to a lot of bigger organizations, and I play the role of that. Our revenue managers play the role of that. We wear many hats. What we try to do is not overcomplicate it and remember this kind of stuff. Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted. That's actually not Einstein. That quote is from the guy who wrote A Dog's Purpose, but a lot of people think that it is Einstein. True nonetheless, because what we need to be doing is this. What we end up doing is this. Okay? We have a problem of overthinking things. We find ourselves spinning plates, and instead of getting 1, 2, 3 things done at 100%, we're doing a dozen, 2 dozen of them at 50%, and nothing gets done, and we overthink it. Blocking and tackling is taking care of people. And that is from the start of the guest experience to the finish, and everything that we do, all the different touch points. Because at the end of the day, it is still the hospitality industry, and great service includes making it as easy as possible to do business with us. That is it. Thank you.